Hi everyone, welcome to Psychedelic Conversations. This is your hub for engaging in deep conversations around serotonergic hallucinogens that alter perceptions, affect cognitive processes, induce mystical and spiritual experiences. Enjoy the show. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Psychedelic Conversations podcast. I am thrilled to be having this conversation with my special guest, Lindsay Kent. Welcome, Lindsay. It's so amazing to have you.
So great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Just to give it a little introduction to our listeners. So Lindsay is the filmmaker behind the upcoming documentary Going Further, chronicling the 50th anniversary of Ken Kesey's Furthur Bus and the spark of America's counterculture. Cannot wait to dive in because I'm going to need a lot of education on this, Lindsay, from you, because obviously we're on the other side of the pond. We're from the UK, and of course there's a whole lot more going on in the US right now with the psychedelic renaissance and with what's going on all around psychedelics. And I think it would be so amazing, firstly, to talk a little bit about you and how you came into the filmmaking, and then we can go into documentary, if that's okay.
Yes, awesome. Sounds great. So I got into filmmaking. Well, I wanted to be a filmmaker since I was 8 years old. I don't know if you ever saw the movie Labyrinth with David Bowie and the Muppets. Okay, I was 8 years old, and I remember I came home from school one day, and my mom had taped an episode of HBO movie Magic, and they talked about how they, made that. And I thought, that's what I want to do. I want to work in these places where we are creating totally new worlds, right? And so, of course, like every other filmmaker who went to film school, I wanted to be the next Spielberg or something. But then I ended up becoming an editor out of college, doing mostly documentaries. And when that happened, when I would watch a project that I had made be seen by lots of people and watch them have a visceral reaction to it, and it was real, it was something that actually happened, and it was like, wow, there's actually a really powerful potential here to create change. And so I was hooked. After that, I just said, okay, this is what I'm going to do. So I edited documentaries for, oh gosh, before I hopped on the bus, 8 or 9 years, and TV shows and things like that. But I found out about the Furthur Bus tour via Kickstarter, because Zane Kesey, who is Ken Kesey's son, had wanted to get the bus back on the road for 50th anniversary tour. And I was just such a big fan because I had read Kerouac and things like this in college. I just thought, wow, if this is really happening, I have to get on this bus. I have to be a part of this. So let me kind of back up, because I think hearing about who Ken Kesey was and how this all happened will actually really help a lot. So in the late 50s, there was something called MK Ultra. I'm not sure if you guys have talked about this yet on the show, but the CIA was doing research on psychedelics and trying to find out if they could control people's minds through psilocybin, LSD, and mescaline. Ken Kesey was an athlete and a scholar and a college student, and he just wanted to represent his country, and so he thought this would be the best way to do that. He had never taken any drugs before. He had only had beer, as far as the story goes. And basically, like I'm sure everyone else who has been on the show, it broke open his mind in a massive way. And he ended up volunteering at the hospital where he was actually in the study, just as a night aide. And so he would actually take LSD while he was working in this psych ward. And he started to see the patients of this psych ward while he was under the influence of LSD, not as, crazy, but as people who had been pushed out of conventional society. And so that ended up, it got him to write One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest in, I think it was 3 weeks or something. He was in his early 20s. He just sat down and he just wrote it out. And he started to bring LSD home and have parties with his friends from Stanford. They started to hang out, have these, parties, kind of become more of a close-knit group. They became known as as Ken Kesey and the Merry Pranksters, which is a different story. But they, for Ken's second book, one sometimes a great notion, they wanted, which was being premiered in New York, they wanted to all go out there together and be able to go to the World's Fair in 64 as a group. And they thought, well, how are we going to actually do this and get out there all together? We should just buy an old bus. So this is the beginning of this side of the culture. Up until that point, we had the beats, right? The beat poets were the people who were on the margins and were commenting on society from that perspective. This trip across the country, which they ended up filming, and if you want to watch that movie, it's called Magic Trip. It took 40 years for them to put all that content together into a coherent story. But that kind of sparked the beginning of the counterculture movement. And Tom Wolfe wrote the Electric Kool-Aid acid test about that trip, about the acid tests that happened at Ken's house after the fact. It was the birth of the Grateful Dead. They had strobe lights, they had body paint, they had costumes, and it was the inception. It was one of the first inceptions of this type of movement. So to hear that the bus was getting back on the road, I was just so excited. I just lost my mind. And I was coming at it not from someone who had been deeply in the culture or even a deadhead. I was just a fan of the books. I had read all of the books. I was a big nerd about this stuff in college. And so when I read about the Kickstarter campaign, I saw that anyone in the world could donate and become a new Merry Prankster and get on one leg of the tour, which was I think it was 10 weeks, like a 10-week tour. And he wasn't going to hire a film crew. I found out later he had many offers from like History and Vice and National Geographic and things like this. And he really just wanted to do things his way. So I just grabbed all of my gear and showed up on the first leg of the tour. And I had no idea what to expect. But two guys from Canada had a very similar idea. And they had actually called Zane and wore him down and said, we really have to film this. So the three of us worked together and shot over 400 plus hours of footage. And it took several years to finally get it all together. But we're super excited that it's coming out now.
Wow. Congratulations. Oh my God. This is a historic moment.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a big part of, and it's a big part of our history, but it's something that you can see the, seeds that were planted all around the world. I mean, the bus, this version of the bus, because there are two buses. The first bus retired after it went to Woodstock in 69 and is still on the farm in Oregon. But the second bus, Ken bought it in 1990 and it went all the way to the UK. It went to Ireland. The Smithsonian wanted to buy it and have it in the, museum. And Ken's like, sure. And drove it around the parking lot and then left. And it was just a prank. But it's an iconic piece of, history. And so to have been back on the road, for the 50th anniversary with a whole new, generation who are into this. And then going back to those same places, going back to Woodstock, going back to Millbrook, where Timothy Leary and Richard Alpert, who was Ram Dass, were studying LSD. And, they had the meeting of the minds, the crazy trippers, and Ken and the pranksters met the, New York version of themselves on that, bus trip. And it wasn't the meeting that they had hoped for, but it was, there were so many iconic moments that we got to revisit as we were going around the country. So it was really special.
Wow. Oh my God, so much. I can't wait to watch it. So when is it premiering again?
So we're super excited because this premiere is going to be next weekend, July 9th, 10th, and 11th.
Mm-hmm.
The screenings are online. Anyone in the world can tune in. They are on demand. You can watch it as many times as you want. But each day, we're going to have a different post show. So on Friday, we have a cast and crew Q&A. We have Zane and we have Derek, it's all his fault. He's the reason that the whole trip happened. We have the other filmmakers and myself and some of the new pranksters. And we're all just kind of talking about the tour and what happened and what it felt like. And then on Saturday, we have Alex and Allison Gray, who are really, amazing visual artists who have created the Chapel of Sacred Mirrors. I mean, a lot of people have called them like, the new leaders of the psychedelic, revolution, because what they're kind of like the new Millbrook, I would say, because they are very open and honest about the use of psychedelics, but from an educational perspective, from a spiritual and a creative perspective. And I think that's really important. And that panel will be moderated by Zach Leary, who is Timothy Leary's son, and who also is featured in the film. And then on Sunday, we have our narrator, Alex Blinsky, is going to be speaking with what we call them the OG pranksters. So the original pranksters, the guys who are still alive. Also, Sam Cutler, who's in the film, he was the tour runner for the Grateful Dead back in the early 70s, and so we get to kind of dive back into the roots of it and how this all started. So that will be really fun as well. So it's more of an event. This weekend will be the only time that you get to see all of this extra content. So it's really exciting, and then people can tune in, like I said, anywhere in the world all weekend long.
Wow, so beautiful. Yes, we'll be sharing the links and we'll be sharing every detail that is related to all the weekends, whatever's happening, the schedule. So can't wait to look into it. And yeah, Alex and Allison, they are also my favorite. I'm always tuning into their conversation. I find that they have found a very super powerful way to come into this new, as we call it, the psychedelic renaissance, in a very creative way, but also very authentic and creative, just kind of like two elders, just leading us back into the revolutionary process of what is lost. Not lost so much, but I know so much was going on still. But I feel like there is this momentum and seems a bit unstoppable. Do you feel the vibe? Like what was it like to bringing all these people together? And right now with the movie, the documentary, I feel like everybody's coming together. It's like one sort of uniting in one spirit sort of thing. Decades later, and it's probably more powerful and it's like more forceful in a way. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I think I kind of compare what happened in the 60s to they were finger painting, right? Like they had been given this really powerful tool and they had no frame. They had no frame to put it in. They had no perspective. They had no elders. They didn't have anyone who could say, okay, yes, but so they were just kind of, what I really appreciate about Ken and the pranksters is that they were taking this very powerful tool and just having a wonderful time, just like doing whatever they, wanted to do and working to get people out of their comfort zone. Now, obviously there's going to be, without any framework, there are going to be, setbacks and issues, because as we know now, not having any integration, not knowing the power of it and how it can affect your mind, there's going to be problems, right? So they were these, pioneers and were using this and in a really out there, just boisterous, powerful way. And then Timothy Leary and Ram Dass were using it in a more reserved, spiritual, connected, educational way, really trying to as they were both, psychologists. So obviously they were coming at it from a completely different place. But I feel like both of those, polar opposites were the inception of how we kind of see this, today. And of course we, in the 60s, they thought this is just, the beginning, and this is just going to, steamroll, and people are going to be studying this, and this is going to be used for depression and things like this. But of course, it took many years for that to actually happen. But now, 50 years, later, we are seeing MDMA in phase 3 trials, with MAPS. We are seeing people starting to, study LSD and psilocybin is becoming legal, or at least decriminalized, and people are beginning to see the value of being able to take these medicines in a way that makes life, easier and better, and bring so much more into, what you get to do and be while you're here. And because of the festivals, and this is really what hit me, I didn't realize, I had been to, some festivals before I did this tour, but I had never been just deep dived into it. And I didn't realize how incredible it is to go and spend a week or a weekend with totally new people, expressing yourself in whatever crazy, freaky way you want, and being completely upheld by that and the power of that. Because I feel like we're all trying to, in today's world, and for a long time, we've been trying to fit into these boxes, right? But we aren't pushing the value and the threshold of human potential if we're trying to fit into a box that we were never meant to fit into, And so being in that environment and experiencing that firsthand. I mean, I'm actually in the film. I was a new, Mary Prankster, and so I'm talking about my experience as it's happening. And I'm just going, wow, like what could we possibly be capable of if we could all experience this, if we could all feel comfortable and safe to be fully expressed as the beings that we are here to be. Like, what could we do if we came together and just celebrated the differences, right? Like, you don't have to agree. Like, it's different if it's, hurtful to someone or to yourself, that's a different story. But if it's not, if you can just be like, cool, awesome, you go do that. Great. There are conversations that can happen in that place. There are changes and shifts that can happen that I think we have yet to see in the quote unquote outside world. And so it's really amazing to see how fast these are popping up, how much people are embracing them. I mean, I ended up creating a short film about my Burning Man experience because I was allowed to go there and film before I even had a ticket, and I had never been. And of course, the bus didn't go there. This was just to kind of fill in some gaps about how far, the culture has come. So I ended up making a short film just about that experience and all the people that I met there. And there were people who were going, I didn't know that human beings could do this, could be like this. It makes me want to go back and, be this, totally, better person. And one guy went back and started a charity. It's really amazing. My Burning Man experience was actually at the tail end of filming for the movie. So
right.
I had filmed everything else. I had gone around the country and met, because the Merry Pranksters from the 60s, they weren't on this tour. It was just Ken Kesey's son, Zane. So I wanted to go and talk to these people who were there, And we spoke with them. We spoke with Wavy Gravy, who was the MC at Woodstock, and he ran the pig farm. He now runs an amazing kids camp called Camp Win a Rainbow, where kids get to go and learn how to be clowns and to do theater and unicycle and just if they had this when I was a kid, I would have lost my mind. But I got to go up there and speak with him, after that, we went to a few extra festivals that just felt more intentional. We're a little bit less about the music, which I think that it's really great that there are ones that are just, for the gathering, just to have a good time. And the music is the big draw. And then there are other, festivals, like one that we went to called Lucidity up near Santa Barbara. And, I think the music stops at like midnight. They have like early workshops in the morning. It's more family, oriented. There are programs for kids, and it's just more about the experience of coming together and being a part of like a microcosm of what the ideal society could, look like, in this beautiful place, having the heavy, conversations from a place of, compassion, creating something new, enjoying, life, and just being really present. And I feel like that there are just more and more of those types of events that are popping up. I know, Burning Man is a slippery slope, because I understand that it's not an environmentally friendly event, that there are a lot of loopholes that people are taking to have that experience. But at the same time, in my personal experience, just my own, the synchronicities and the power of everyone setting some sort of an intention to go out in the middle of nowhere and create a city. There's this energy that is indescribable, and there is a layer of healing that is happening that I have not experienced anywhere else. And so with all of its faults aside, because I do think that there are more sustainable ways of doing things, what it is creating and what it is making people want to go home and continue is extremely potent and powerful and necessary. And I feel, I'm just grateful. I mean, I had my own judgments about it before I went, about this entire culture, because I wasn't a part of it. I just saw everything as like, just a giant rave and an excuse to party. And some of them are, and that's okay. But there's so much more going on. And that's really what fueled, the three of us filmmakers' years of putting this thing together and working on it, and the blood, sweat, and tears that went into making something like this for the first time. It's because people may not know that their tribe is out there, that all the things that make them stand out and make them feel like they don't belong are actually what makes them perfect and special and awesome. And there are other people out there who would totally love that and embrace that and just uphold you as that. It's just a matter of finding them and kind of going out of your comfort zone and trying to there are festivals in almost every corner of the globe now, and I think after what we've just been through with this pandemic, there's just going to be more people who want to create gatherings and in-person opportunities to talk about things. I mean, look what happened with the amount of division in our country alone when we were all stuck inside. It's like, hey, weren't we all going through this together? Weren't we all in the same boat of dealing with COVID on a global scale? And we use it as an excuse to divide even further. And I feel like that a big part of that is because we aren't face to face. Like, we aren't speaking to each other in person. We aren't remembering the humanity in the person who happens to have a different opinion. And that's not, there's no healing and there's no forward motion from that place. We can draw our line in the sand and say, I'm right and you're wrong, but is that really going to move anything forward? It's like going to solve anything, and it's not.
Yeah.
That's all I'll say about that. But that's really a big part of why I felt so drawn to this bus and then to this film is just, being a human is messy and weird and crazy, and we all have these experiences, and being able to be out in person in a group of people and feeling like you can totally be yourself. It's like all of a sudden, all of these layers and these walls that you've had up don't seem as necessary, and you start to be able to have conversations that you could never have before. And so I think it's just really, really important. And psychedelics play a big part of that. I think it's not for everyone, but if people choose to have an experience with it, it reminds you of it puts things in a perspective that you've never had before. As Zach Leary says in the film, it gives you an opportunity to kind of come around the backside of your lens and go, oh, wow, I can see things in a completely different way. I don't have to look at things in this very finite way anymore. And that just allows for more compassion and more trust. I think that we really need that right now.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I want to backtrack a few things that you said so profoundly. One of the things about Burning Man, yes, there is a stigma around it. There's a lot of negativity and yes, judgment and everything. It's almost like somehow when we don't understand something, it's easy to judge and criticize, right? I feel that I think Burning Man always been that thing that everybody criticized, but then the Instagram kind of, the Instagram culture came on, and then the Burning Man became the backdrop of, as Jamie Wheel always talks about, the backdrop of almost all of these, influencers where they just want to take a picture. But I mean, people would come there with all kinds of intentions, all kinds of reasons, but somehow there is a spirit in there that captures you, even if it's just a little tiny glimpse of it that you take home. And that could be that little seed that you've been waiting for at least, or that seed then grows. And then I know so many people after being after visiting Burning Man, they've changed careers, they've changed countries, they've changed a lot of things. And sometimes we don't understand how things work, but there is this, invisible unconscious thing is continually evolving in us, and those experiences are really profound. And after I think pandemic, would you say also that pandemic has pushed us to be more open to the Burning Man, to counterculture, or going back into the psychedelic revolution? Now even the mainstream is stepping in, and this already, the biotech companies, we always talk about these conversations. These conversations are happening everywhere. People, there's always this dark and the light side of where people want to kind of monetize it, and then there's people want to truly, like you yourself, passionate, want to really, spread the message. Look, it's all about this, guys, not this. And then I feel like there has been a really deep shift that came with the pandemic. And I've met so many people in the last sort of 6 months or maybe more that weren't ready, or at least had no interest in psychedelic medicines. And now they are opening up. Now, whether it's mainstream, like I listened to Rick Doblin once, and they said, you're the man, you probably know all of this, and you see how they, trying to the mainstream, trying to monetize these medicines. And he said, that's fine. If that's what it's going to take, he said, that's fine, because people are suffering, people are in pain. We don't have time to wait around for the right moment, for the right thing to happen. It is now. It's happening right now, and we need to kind of step in. And this kind of tells me that he's the kind of person can see and hold the dark and the light. We live in this dualistic reality. Yes, everything. One of my favorite quotes is that the brighter the light, the darker or deeper the shadows. It's always going to be like that. I mean, we can sit here and criticize and judge all of these things that are happening around psychedelics, and people are taking them to the clinics, and now we got all this problem. And yes, that's true. But looking back now, 4 decades, how many decades? We haven't done anything with these medicines, and look where we are. There's more isolation, more pain, more depression, more mental illnesses, more of this connection. Like you said earlier, we've forgotten how it feels to be human and connecting. Like, and these medicines, somehow, the moment you tell me your story, I'm already connected to you. There is this invisible power in these medicines that somehow kind of, somehow connects to each other, just because you've gone through certain experiences, or regardless from wherever you are from, and your background, your culture, doesn't matter. You're in the US and I'm in the UK, and I feel your passion. I feel your experience with these medicines. I feel how, you've gone through the journey yourself. And this feels like very, very relatable. I resonate with that. And earlier you said, if we can just leave all the differences aside and leave all the arguments aside, can we do something together and let the psychedelic medicines be the catalyst to remember that we're human, that we need connection, that we need to do things together, look for our tribe. Tribe can be they could be anywhere. I mean, I feel like I have a lot of my tribe are in the US. Maybe I need to go there sometime in the future, but do you see what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah. Right?
Yes, absolutely.
So I feel so connected with a lot of people from the US, and I feel like, that's really strange, because I really feel like, although I don't really know the history that well with the counterculture and everything that you're telling us today, I'm like fascinated. And I feel like, well, at the same time, I'm connected. So that's so beautiful.
I love it. I totally get that. I think it's a similar thing with, yoga. People are upset that people are making millions or billions of dollars off of something that's been around for much, much longer than, we have. We have to think about the program that we've been on, right? There's this wonderful book that I think should be required reading for everyone right now. It's by Charles Eisenstein. It's called The Ascent of Humanity. And in it, he talks about the story that we've been on since we were, tribal gatherer people until now, and how we ended up in this, what he calls the age of separation. So as we have been continuing to expand technology wise, we have this, hubris, this ego telling us that we can control nature and we can somehow through technology live forever and solve all of our problems. But the further along we get on the technology train, the worse our problems are. And it comes down to us forgetting what makes us inherently human, which is connection, which is like community. We weren't meant to be isolated and alone. Even before COVID, we had our nuclear family, and every now and then we'd have, friends over. Like this is not how human beings lived for a very, very, very long time. They were very close knit in like a tribal situation. And that connection with their neighbors and their community was part of their like lifeblood, was part of their, energy source. And we've completely cut that off because we feel like we know better. He says a lot of really profound things in his book, and he wrote this before COVID, but he talks about us entering the age of reunion. And this is what I truly feel we are doing, because through things like the festivals, through psychedelic medicine, there are so many doors, there are doorways, there are an infinite amount of doorways, and trauma is one of the doorways. Let's be honest, going through something that is traumatic can kick you into a different perspective and a different like level of understanding that you weren't in before. And sometimes that's necessary. But we have to give people a break who are trying to, monetize, things that some people think should be free or should be open and whatever. That's part of a program that we have been a part of for a very long time. It's ingrained in us. I know some of my work is going back and unplugging from the program of my parents, saying, life is hard and money is hard to, come by, and you work and you toil and you sweat and then you die. I mean, that's basically how they lived and how their parents lived and their parents. And undoing that program is a part of my, my medicinal experiences that I have had, because it's been so ingrained that it has cut me off from my creativity and from my fullest, expression. So because of the work, I can see it at a different level. But it's just like, we're all on a different trip, right? We're all on different levels, having honor and respect for all of the, levels, because we've been there at some point. All of us have been there. And if you're getting triggered by something that someone else is doing, it's because there's something in you that is that needs to be healed. Let's be honest. We know this because we've sat in the ceremonies and we've done this, and we've seen the things that, come up. And it's just really important, I think, to cultivate more presence around that, more awareness. That is, to me, that is what the, medicine does, and what, meditation does as well. But awareness, like just awareness alone, could solve so many of our problems, so many. I think that's what Ken and the pranksters were trying to do. It's just like when they went through New York City, and there was amazing footage of them going through New York in the 60s on this bus, and everyone's got their little coats and their little hats, and they're like, what the hell is this? But they wanted people to see something different and to break them out of their like day to day. Because when we like wake up in the morning and we have, okay, I have to go and do this, I have to go to the store, and I have to, blah, 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 and we do that until we go to sleep every single day. And we don't practice any level of like presence or awareness, we are missing out completely and fully on life and what we are capable of as these beings. We're supposed to be human beings, not doings, right? And yet we have created a culture where you are successful if you do more and if you have more. And I do feel like that's shifting. The younger people are seeing the value of experiences over things, which I think is awesome and amazing. It doesn't only have to live on social media, though. Just because you look awesome in this picture, as someone who's on social media, I know how much of a pain in the ass it is to take a really great, picture. You can also just go and enjoy it and not post about it. But I digress. I just feel like, we are human beings, and we're very messy things. And the way that we end up getting to wherever we are headed, if it's hopefully towards a level of a higher level of consciousness and awareness. It's going to be messy getting there because we're unplugging from this program that we've been in for so long. And there are going to be people who want to take advantage of that because that's just where they are on their level, on their trip. And that's okay. Right?
Yeah, absolutely agree. And coming from that holistic background, I truly understand what it takes to birth a new way of being, because, the level of issues, the level of drama that we need to go through is going to be proportionate to the level of new thing that we're trying to birth. So I really get that. So definitely we need to brace ourselves for all the mess that's going to come through while we are entering into this new era. I call it the new era because I feel like going forward, because of the pandemic being such a biblical event, this is going to be written forever, our children's children, or the generation, the younger generation, they're always going to, how we read about stuff from the 50s when LSD dropped into the 50s in the scene, fascinated to read all those things. I think the new generation is going to read, wow, there was this pandemic, people had to stay home, every single human being were affected on the planet. I feel like this was really a biblical moment, and this is like catastrophizing what is to come. I feel like this had to happen. And one of my friends, I always love mentioning, he says it was a collective rites of passage. And, the more of us going to be birthing new ways of awareness and understanding consciousness and doing and trusting. I feel like the word is kind of being thrown around a lot lately. That's because I think we're finally grasping that we were never in control, that we've been conditioned to think that we control everything, and we're so certain in our ways. The lifetime, the timeline of from birth to the grave is all set and, set in stone, and we just know what we're going to do. And suddenly pandemic kind of rattled the cages. And then now I feel like, we're so the life is going to be, for me, from my perspective, is going to be life before COVID and life after COVID. And this is kind of parallel. It's kind of there's a driving force. Psychedelics and the pandemic situation is like so tightly entwined and tightly kind of going together, parallel. There is a really strong force and a push to this new birthing. I call it the new awareness. And there's going to be a lot of people resisting, as we're going to see it, right? We're going to see a lot of push, a lot of pushback, a lot of resistance to this, which is fine. But it's always been this way. I mean, even in the 50s, I'm sure you've encountered so many people that have been in the middle of these events in the 50s, 60s, 70s. One of my favorites, Stan Grof, you probably know him. He's like the godfather of the, those LSD trips and reports and everything. So just listening to them, they've lived a time, this historical time. I feel like this is the time for us, and what we do now is going to make a massive difference. And I also feel like it's no coincidence that someone like you would jump on to do such documentaries and spread the message, and it's all about rattling the cages and breaking us out of the conditioning. So I really truly value that, Lindsay. So I'm really honored that there's so many of us think the same, and so many of us will be going forward with this intention. So I just want to quickly go back to the bus again. And you said to me that this bus kind of represents the spark of the counterculture. For our listeners who don't know much about the counterculture, can we maybe speak to that a little bit? And then we can see how this is all coming together.
Absolutely. I think just from my experience being on this trip, I feel like, there are branches from the seed that have gone in all different kinds of directions. So there's the intentional festivals that we talked about, right? So you have to, think about the birth of the public using, psychedelics and coming together and expressing themselves in bright colors and, music and stuff. This is the very beginning of that. The very first art car was the first, all of those things. The festivals like Burning Man and Lucidity and these more intentional gatherings is one really, powerful and potent aspect. And then the other is, the true and tried hippies, the Grateful Dead heads, the people who are like the 60s are not gone. They're still here and they're alive and well. And that is an extraordinary, a very like robust culture. My very first Dead show, my only Dead show so far, was actually the last concert in Chicago. It was the Fare Thee Well concert that was supposed to be the end, and then they were like, "Just kidding, we're going to keep doing this." This is 2015, and I'll never forget that because there were 70,000 people at Soldiers Field that day, and there were no, disorderly like fights or aggression or anger. Everyone was crying and hugging each other and dancing. And I mean, just 70,000 people. And then, the last song that was played, Not Fade Away. I mean, it continued for like 5 straight minutes of people just clapping and singing the lyrics. And I just thought, there are 70,000 people in here who are on the same like vibration right now, who have all been somehow deeply affected by this, culture and this music, and everyone is just singing in unison. And it was like, I mean, I felt like I was like, that there was an electricity in the air. It was so powerful. And I really, I've had this experience a few times, actually sitting with medicine. I've sat with ayahuasca in Peru, and I've sat in ceremonies in Los Angeles. And I remember these experiences, the feelings of like, I would have these visions of like a whole crowd of people all of a sudden singing in the same tone, and the power that was created, almost like this ball of light that was created from that. And I feel like that energy is what is pushing us forward, is what is actually creating, it's what's waking people up. It's what's reminding people of what is really important. It's what's pushing us forward, is the people who are coming together and in that frequency of compassion and joy and fun and love, because that energy is extraordinarily powerful and tangible. It disrupts everything else, all the fear and aggression and anger and all of these things. It can't like last when you are completely focusing on these other energies. Now, I'm not saying there isn't a time and a place to be angry and to be upset and to be afraid. Clearly there is, but you don't have to live there, right? And we are living in a society. If you turn on the news, we are supposed to be constantly in fear. And there are, if you, what is his name? Oh my gosh, Joe Dispenza talks about how in a physiological manner, how fear affects you on a cellular, level. Yeah. If you actually just spend a few minutes a day in gratitude, how that affects your immune system. He's done studies. This is scientifically proven. This isn't just some like woo-woo stuff that we feel. And so these like tendrils that have been that were spurned from the seed, like they are carrying that torch, that idea, that like feeling that they had when they took LSD, and they were like, no, there's something really important here. We need to go tell everybody about it. We're seeing that today, decades later. We're seeing people who through, either the Grateful Dead or going to festivals or trying the medicine or just meeting someone who had, how it's affected them, how it's helping people, how it's making people come together and work out the issues. I mean, we aren't going to be able to move forward, not as a society, as a race, unless we seriously come together and focus more on the things that matter. And that stems from awareness. Now, how are we going to create more awareness? Ideally, not through more trauma, right? Having things like psychedelic medicine that's in phase 3, trials, and making it more accessible for people, creating content, telling stories about how this is helping people and how it's affecting people. Like, this is where it starts, right? This is how we get the word out that there is a different way to live. We don't have to do this anymore. That story is ending. We clearly have gotten as far as we can on it. It's not working like anymore. We need to focus on something else that could actually get us to closer to where we want to be, right?
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you. I felt that. Yeah. So what's the mission going forward now? Lindsay, you will be continually making films around this message. Yeah, tell us what the future is looking like.
Absolutely. So, I have actually been called to focus more on powerful female stories. So like one of my biggest takeaways from my time in Peru, which was an all women's ceremony, was that we were gatekeepers to this divine feminine energy that was coming onto this planet. There are really incredibly powerful women who have lived throughout history, whose stories were paved over because they weren't men, that I feel called to be telling those stories. Right now, I'm completing production on a film called Conductrix, which if anyone watched the Academy Awards last year, the very first woman to ever conduct the orchestra at the Academy Awards in the 92-year history. Her is this Irish blonde powerhouse named Emer Noon, and I've been following her around the world for like 3+ years. Her story is deeply inspiring and powerful, but it's also just a woman's story of like trying to make it in a male-dominated business as a woman, as a mother, through grief, through loss, through gender bias, through being fired for being pregnant. I mean, things that like unfortunately are pretty commonplace. But the passion that she had to do what she wanted to do just drove her to succeed. And it's really just I'm just really grateful to have met her and to be telling this story. I'm actually headed to Ireland in a couple of weeks once it's safe to do so, to wrap production on that. And yeah, I'm not called as much to sit with the medicine, at least not right now. I think it's one of those things where once you get the message, hang up the phone until it, rings again. But my psychedelic experiences have really shaped who I am and have made me, have helped me remember who I truly am and what I have come here to do and who I have come here to be, and helped me to focus my energy on what I want to create and what my purpose is. Because if you just focus on that, then if you have any, setbacks and drawbacks, which you will, if you try to do anything, then it's okay, because that's not really going to affect how you feel about your purpose and what you're doing. And there's so much freedom in that, and there's freedom in sitting with the medicine and realizing that the person that you've created in the past, I'm going to be 37 next month. And, the 37 years, this Lindsay is just an aspect of the being that I am. And once I experienced that in a psychedelic ceremony, I was like, wow, when I can be aware of when I'm triggered now and decide if I'm ready to let it go or if I want to hold on to it from now on. Right? Mm-hmm. Wow. There's so much freedom that comes with that. And trust me when I say I don't let everything go. Sometimes I'm like, no, I'm not ready. I have to hold on to this one a little bit longer, because we're human beings and sometimes we aren't ready. But I have to tell you, just getting out of the victim mentality and seeing everything is happening for you rather than to you. This is what the medicine does. And it can change people's lives. And there are a lot of things, there are a lot of tools to help people get there. This isn't the only one. Clearly it isn't for everyone, but if you are called to it, make sure, setting and dosage and the right stuff and everything has to be perfect. Really, really crucial and important. But when it is, it's just like, oh my God, now I get to know this for the rest of my life. Now I get to operate from this place and help people remember who they, really are, and that they are not alone. And it's just been such a beautiful gift. I'm so grateful. I mean, I had never tried LSD until I did the tour, until I made this film. It was not something I had sat with psilocybin a few times before that, but my psychedelic experiences all happened after the fact, all happened after I got on the bus. And I do want to share this story because it's pretty funny. When the bus finally made it back to San Francisco, I was given, not on the bus. I will say that, Zane, not on the bus, because no one took any drugs on the bus. That was true, because he wouldn't, allow that. but someone had Owsley LSD, like some LSD actually made by Owsley from the 60s. And I tried it, and I was like, okay, I need to go somewhere else and not be, around anyone. And my mom had actually booked me a hotel, and because I was so busy shooting, I just didn't have time. And she had just booked something random on Hotwire. She didn't know what it was. So I talked to a, sober friend. I was like, hey, can you please take me to this, hotel? And we get there. He hands me the key. He says 3rd floor, and we go upstairs, and we're walking down the hallway, and each door has a name on it. It's like Hunter S. Thompson, Robin Williams. I'm going, this is amazing. I wonder who we have. I get to the end of the hall. I turn the corner. It's the Ken Kesey suite.
No way.
The only Ken Kesey suite that exists on the entire planet. We had no idea. And the guy downstairs had no idea who like the Furthur Bus or Ken Kesey was. He had absolutely no idea.
Wow.
And so I ended up having this incredibly powerful, potent download of who I am and what I'm here to do, sitting on the bed in the Ken Kesey suite. I mean, his bio is typed on the typewriter. There are like framed pictures of Furthur on the walls. It was almost like Ken had chosen me to be a part of this. It's like, you're not going anywhere. You're making this movie. And I had just this beautiful heart-opening experience that really it changed my life. And it was the very beginning of me being involved in this and creating this movie. So it's truly, truly, truly a labor of love. And I feel like that really comes through when you watch it. By the time it's over, you should feel like, heck yes, this is amazing. I want to go make something. I want to find my tribe. I want to, get out there and just be silly and be weird and just be myself. Have more hugs because we haven't had them in so long, that's really what it was about for me. So yeah, I just wanted to share that because it was such a wild story.
Yes. And I hear, I think Stan talks about this a lot, synchronicities. I feel like the moment we step into some sort of like a higher calling, a lot of people say higher calling, synchronicities are incredible. Like you just cannot make this up, make it happen, even if you tried. So these are the kind of experiences a lot of people experience in that synchronicity.
It's like the divine breadcrumbs, right? Mm-hmm. It's just like you're on the right track. Like the odds of this happening are so low. So now you really have to focus on where those, breadcrumbs are leading you. Yeah, it's really amazing, and it's comforting, I think, because it kind of reminds you that there's something else going on in the wings, whether you believe in God or not. I do believe that there is something greater than our little minds can comprehend that is running the show that we can tap into and be a part of. And I think that's really part of the, medicine and the psychedelic experience as well. It's like, oh, wow, it was all about me like one minute ago, and now it's not at all. It's really incredible. Yeah.
Wow. 2 things I want to track back. Thank you for reinforcing the fact that we need to make sure that it's a calling. You said the medicines are not for everybody. Let's just reinforce. Yes, absolutely. Because I've met so many meditators who tap into the same kind of fields and states. So it's beautiful to just put it out there that it's not for everybody. But if it is for you, setting context, intention is super important. Safety, having the container and somebody there, and also kind of approaching it with maturity, I guess, is kind of the key. And also you said the other one that I want to say thank you for also, with these kind of callings, it's hard to know. A lot of people I know, they struggle. What is my purpose? What is my purpose? But I think when we, there's something happens and then we cracked open. I call it the cracking open moment. I feel like the medicines has this type of strength, the power, the profundity to just kind of crack us open. And then after that, it's our job to follow the breadcrumbs and little signs here and there and be able to pick those up and live from that space with trust and just kind of knowing that this is too physical, this is too limited. Yes, but what if I chose this? What if I'm experiencing this because I need to? And still appreciating because it's not all about the higher dimensions, isn't it? It's about what can I create in this little physical world? And as you said, maybe a community. How about a community? How about open spaces where people can be their authentic selves? Like, why do we need to be all, serious and take ourselves so seriously? And I love the second thing, the medicine has this power to tell us it's not about you. Come on, this is bigger than you. And somehow we're so conditioned to think that the world revolves around us. It's all about our feeling and me, and my thing and my life and all these people and everyone's out to get me sort of thing. Like, it's so narrow and so rigid, and it's crazy. And then
it keeps us disempowered is what it does. It's designed to keep us feeling like victims and feeling like we aren't in control of our own reality. And that's not true. It's a total illusion. If you choose to see it, if you choose to, and again, there's 1,000,001 ways to access this and to feel this, but it is true. As someone who used to be very, very negative and just, if I think of the worst case scenario, then I will never be disappointed. My outer reality reflected that. And as soon as I started to come out of that, and it was meditation for me is what happened first. And also dream work. When I started to really focus my intention and reprogram my brain to be more positive, because you can do that. You can rewire yourself. My outer reality totally shifted. It completely changed. And I think that this, medicine, it does help in a much more small, short period of time, show us how connected we are, how powerful we are, and how much our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions are affecting our reality all the time. And what a gift that can be. Like the MDMA studies, I actually made a short documentary about a guy who was diagnosed with an illness that's going to kill him. Eventually he's going to die from it. It's called scleroderma. And he was in excruciating pain for 3 years. He was addicted to opiates. He could barely get out of bed. And they were doing this kind of ancillary MDMA study with people who were diagnosed with a life-threatening illness to kind of talk them through the experience of knowing they're going to die, right?
Wow.
And so he had never taken ecstasy or MDMA before, but he was just like, I'm doing this. And they give you a powerful dose. They take you to this beautiful cabin, and you're out in nature, and they wrap you in blankets, and they play soothing music. And then they talk to you about what you're most afraid of. And it changed his life. I mean, he went for one run after that, and he said he was in excruciating pain, but it's almost like his body was just like, thank you. He's now a yoga teacher. He runs between 8 and 10 miles a day in deep sand. He's a machine, but when he does that, he's not in any pain. And he's one of the most amazing, powerful, positive people I have ever met. And he sees life as a total gift. And he was nowhere in that headspace before.
Wow.
And it's really just the shift in your mind, how that just one little switch, once it's flipped, it's really hard to go back to how it was before. And all of a sudden you feel empowered and free to be the person that you were here to be. And isn't that what we're all after?
That's it. That's the purpose of life. Yeah. To be free. Oh, I love it. Thank you so much. What a pleasure to get to know you.
Yeah, likewise. This has been so great, and Susan, thank you so much for, doing these chats. I think it's really, really important work. And when you're ready to come to the US, call me, because I'll show you around.
Sure thing. I'll be definitely calling you as soon as it's aligned with the work I'm doing. And of course, like you said earlier, when we're free to fly, when we can fly again as we wish, 100%, I'll be there. Well, I'll be following your work for sure, and cannot wait to share everything about the documentary. We'll put all the links in, and I really would love our listeners to join the weekend of the screening and everything that goes around the documentary, and also the future projects. I'm sure we'll have you back again. Once you do your women project, the lady from Ireland, just to kind of follow on your mission and how you are making an impact in this world. So gratitude. Thank you for all the work you're doing.
Likewise, Susan. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Please do get in touch and connect with Lindsay and myself. And we sure will be sharing the links. And I cannot wait to have the second part of this conversation very soon. And yeah, much love. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye for now. Thank you so much for joining us. Psychedelic Conversations podcast is designed to educate, inform, and expand awareness. For more information, please head over to psychedelicconversations.com. You can also share with your friends or leave a review so that we can reach more people. You can also join us in our private Facebook group to keep the conversation going. This show is for information purposes only, and it is not intended to provide mental health or medical advice. Thanks for listening.